Hope this finds you well, our viewer who has been by our side, always following our channel and always staying with us in everything that we update you. Today we happen to have visited Rusinga Island, and we are paying homage to one of the greatest world icons who was assassinated many years back. But we are commemorating him, we are remembering him because this was a great personality in the name of Tom Joseph Mboya. We are visiting the mausoleum where his remains lies. And we would wish to update you this day about all that has been around his life. We have a host whom we anticipate to meet by the gate, and he will take us, guide us, and tell us most of the stories. We'll also make a summary of the same. My name is John Bosco for Joint Hands Green Life Trees, and I'm here.
And I'm Pamela from Joint Hands Green Life Trees.
Yeah, and among the things we anticipate to do here includes tree planting exercise. We want to plant a single tree in commemoration of Tom Mboya, this great world icon. So you can move along with us. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, you're meeting Paul Ndiege.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul is one of the curators of the Tom Mboya Mausoleum, but I also happen to be one of Tom's younger brothers.
Okay.
It's great that you're visiting right away.
Yeah.
Though a bit late, but I'll be here at your service.
Thank you so
So
much.
shall we walk in?
Thank you so much.
So this is the Tom Mboya Mausoleum that was built 2 years after Tom's assassination.
Yeah.
That was in 1971. Remember, Tom was politically assassinated on the 5th of July 1969,
Yeah.
and that was in Nairobi on a road then called Government Road, which is today Moi Avenue.
Yeah.
On the fateful day, Tom had just walked out of a pharmacy along this road, then called the Chani Pharmacy. Tom had just gone to buy some lotion. He was complaining of dry skin. But little did Tom know that he was being trailed by an assassin with the names Isaac Nash and Njenga Njoroge. As Tom walked out and met Njenga, the assassin shot him twice and he was pronounced dead on arrival at the Nairobi hospital.
Yeah.
So out of the chaos and the protest that followed, Tom had to be buried as quickly as possible so that normalcy would return.
Yeah.
It only took 6 days to have Tom buried right inside this grave, and that was on the 11th of July 1969. So the assassination may have been as a result of Tom's high profile as a charismatic brilliant politician who had been seen as an obvious to the then President Jomo Kenyatta in the 1969 election.
Right.
So Tom had to be buried within his father's homestead because by that time Tom had already planned to move out traditionally to be relocated so that he could establish his own homestead.
Yeah.
But because the assassination came some days before, Tom would, as per the traditions of Luos, be buried within the father's homestead. So this mausoleum sits within the Ndiege family homestead, Tom having been born to the late Leonardus Ndiege and Marcella Ward. Right behind that wall, we have the main family homestead where the surviving family members of the Ndiege family reside.
Right.
Both Tom's parents, Ndiege and Marcella, died in the year 1987, which was 18 years after Tom's death. So, as per Luo traditions, they had to be buried right in the middle of the homestead, being the owners of the same. So Tom as well by that time had his very first house, the traditional Simba, which means a son's first house within the father's homestead, which stood somewhere outside here, but was later demolished. Yeah, so the mausoleum, which came 2 years after Tom's assassination, was a project by most of his friends and the family, but mainly friends from Tom's larger network from foreign countries. So maybe this was designed by an American who offered and volunteered to do it. But one of the things that stands out is the shape of this building. If we can look at that building right from the base to the tip, it was designed in the shape of the bullet. So it symbolizes the bullet that fell Tom on Government Road when he left the pharmacy. Right in the hall, we have a few of Tom's collections in terms of mementos, awards, honors, and even the artifacts. We have the starkest reminder of Tom's assassination, the briefcase that he was carrying right as he was shot dead. So maybe you'll have time to have a look at the same. But before then, allow me to inform you that we have a white man's grave here. The white man was called William X. Scheinman from the US. So Tom met Scheinman at Oxford University in 1955 when Tom had earned a scholarship to study at Oxford. The then International Trade Union movement offered Tom the chance to study at a branch of Oxford called Ruskin College, and he would be there to study labor relations, but later he would study economics, political science as well. So as they met, William was rather amazed by Tom's brilliance, charisma, and name it, and William informed a committee back in the US then called the American Committee on Africa, which included the great like Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, and others, who would later offer Tom his first opportunity to visit the US in 1956 when he completed his education there. So that's how the connection between Tom and the great Americans came into being, and this would later even support one of Tom's great initiatives. Right from 1959 to the 60s, Tom had run a project called African American Students Foundation with the aim of enabling bright but needy African students earn scholarships, study in the US colleges and universities, attain the necessary training and knowledge, and would later come back and help in building the young nation Kenya. Among the beneficiaries would be Obama Senior, Wangari Maathai, just to mention a few. So out of this, William and Tom would partner in most of projects right in Kenya and the whole of Africa, and out of this grew a friendship. So William would also later amaze the world when he wrote a will to the effect that in death his remains be cremated back in the US, so that part of his ashes would be flown to Kenya, buried wherever Tom would be buried. It never mattered who died first. But in this scenario, Tom would be killed in 69. William lived as a friend of this family right from 69 to 1999, 30 years. But he would come visit the family, mainly on Tom's anniversaries, and he would also keep an eye into the projects that Tom left incomplete. So William would make his last visit here in March 99. As he went back home to the US in May, William fell ill, died, and his remains were cremated, and part of the ashes flown and interred just here. So that's the history of this smaller grave. We have an adjacent graveyard. This is called the Diege family graveyard. Our king who have left us always laid to rest here. We have Tom's brothers, sisters-in-law, and others who have since been buried here. But for Tom's immediate family, the family was later relocated to a place of their choice to come up with their own homestead. That's on your way to Homa Bay around Lambwe Valley. So the Lambwe home is today Tom Mboya nuclear family homestead. Unfortunately, we lost Tom's very firstborn son, a brilliant commercial lawyer by the name Peter Mboya. Peter died in a sports bike accident in 2004 Nairobi. Then, as per traditions, he had to be laid to rest there. 5 years later, which was in 2009, Pamela, the wife of Tom, died in South Africa, having suffered from cancer. The body was brought home, and the burial had to be just done in the same compound as per traditions. So for the rest of Tom's sons and daughters, we also have a big caption inside that shows the same. Though by the time Tom was killed in 69, the kids were very low and very young. We may walk into the hall now.
Yes, he was barely 39 years old.
So apart from this symbolic bullet shape, we have another symbol on the door. And right here, on either side of the door, is an invasion of a coffin shape. Yeah. Then we have the cross. Tom had been a devout Catholic faithful. Yeah. So you may come in.
Thank you.
So this is Tom's signature portrait, a very common one around the world. It's right there. Then we have this caption on Tom's biography.
Yeah, so that is the history we were getting from our host concerning the great Tom Mboya, an icon, a global icon, a guy who joined hands with others to see that he airlifted hundreds of Kenyan students to the United States, to Canada, and across the globe, to the UK, just to see that we had bright students who could then get into the labor market to just support government systems, which by then we didn't have quite a good number of educated citizens. So at that point, Tom Mboya was on great help. As you can see, his portrait here, and he with great Kenyan leaders photo there, and there is also just so much about concerning his burial. You can see how he was ferried over across the Mbita Rusinga Causeway, and how the body got disembarked from the hearse as it arrived.
3rd of October 1966, Tom became an honorary citizen of the city of Kansas, Missouri in the U.S. These are mere artifacts. Look at that side. Here, so right there, he was also honored as an African leader and installed as an African elder. So Kimela Niyo and Bell. He had met the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, who died some months ago. And one of the things the Queen brought home was a special Korean gift. We have this from Australia, India, Italy. Then the cannonballs. You play that game called bowling on his free time. Yes. As a top-notch student of Oxford University, he now won the emblem of Oxford University as an award. The Tom loved dancing and playing the guitar. They had a band which was called the Bachelor's Band in that cabinet. So the Nairobi Dance Committee presented this dancing trophy to Tom Mboya. He even carried one of the Greek gods, This one here. Yeah, but this one portrays Gautama Buddha. Tom attended a launching of a spacecraft in California. Now we have the fly whisk. This would be carried by local politicians on their rallies. So the meaning of the same is a symbol of leadership and authority. So white here would stand for peace. There's a black one that would go for the color of the African people. So same colors and meanings are reflected on the national flag. Here we've displayed the very flag that draped Tom's casket. Tom had an honorary degree conferred on him from Roosevelt University in Chicago. This is called a nameplate. Nameplates are always found on an office desk. Yeah. So this was a souvenir from the Chinese government. We see the dragons. Some gift came from Japan, the little sacred birds of Japan. Yeah. But the Railway African Union bought this to Tom on his wedding, being their trade union leader. Now here, as you get from Homa Bay to Mbita town, then onto the bridge, you cross into Rusinga Island. So within Rusinga Island, the mausoleum is located right here. The adjacent islands into Lake Victoria are Takawiri, Fangano. So you could end up in Uganda or this side into Tanzania. But this is the route to Luanda Kotieno, then eventually to Kisumu. But the mainland route, which I suppose you've used today, is this one to Homa Bay, Rongo, and elsewhere, or Kindu Bay. Yeah.
Is that the one to Kisumu, is it?
Yeah, this the ferry.
When you cross with the ferry this way,
then you get to Luanda Kotieno.
then you get to Luanda Kotieno.
Then by road into Kisumu. College, which is today a university. The staff came and brought this. This was brought by the Kenya Navy. But remember, Tom had been elected the first chairman of the first All African People's Conference of 8 December 1958. So these are the medals he carried from that function. But this came from the NDC, National Defense College. So by the time he was killed in 69, the kids were very young. Yeah. Now 30 years later would be 1999. So this was taken to that late. So we have Tom's daughter by the names Maureen. Maureen is currently a High Court judge in Nairobi, Milimani Court High Court, but today called Justice Maureen Odero. This is the husband. Then the late Peter, the one who died in that sports bike accident. The third one is Dr. Susan Mboya, the one married to former Governor Kidero. And then we have Lucas Mboya and Tom Mboya Jr. Justice Maureen, the late Peter, Dr. Susan, Lucas, and Tom Jr. Peter's wife is surviving, called Gladys. Sigrid being the wife to Lucas, Odero the husband to Maureen, and the grandchildren by 99.
That is it in commemoration of the late Tom Mboya. We've planted a commemoration tree, an Olea Welwichi tree, considering that Tom Mboya was no small person. Globally, he was known. This guy rubbed shoulders with great figures like J.F. Kennedy, great figures like Martin Luther King Jr. This guy saw over 800 Kenyan students ferried to the United States and other countries which were academically advanced so that they could come back and impact. The spirit of environmentalism, the spirit of growing trees, we got it from one Wangari Maathai, who was a beneficiary of the airlifting program by Tom Mboya. Stay tuned for more. We look forward to catching up with you for a lot more from us, Joint Hands Green Life Trees. I'm called John Bosco from Tom Mboya Mausoleum. Let's catch up for more.